Good morning, everyone. Your morning weather briefing for this Friday, July 6th, finds that there are a couple of changes that I wanted to note this morning. I would not consider either of them as huge changes, but greater point of emphasis today is for some moderation in temperatures in the 11 to 15 day period for especially the northern plains and into western portions of the Corn Belt. My temperature and rainfall outlooks this morning, you can still see the moderation in temperatures in the near term indicated by the map there for the 1 to 5 day time frame, showing a lot of normal or even pockets of below normal temperatures for the 1 to 5 day period, but are still looking at extensive heat in the 6 to 10 day time frame. And then you can see the changes in the 11 to 15 day period, going for a bigger area of near normal temperatures in the western Corn Belt and northern plains. Still, I'm looking for more above normal temperatures in that period for the eastern Corn Belt. 6 to 10 and 11 to 15 day rainfall forecast, not exceptionally different than what I presented yesterday. QPF discussion for the 1 to 5 day time frame, no major disagreements with this forecast. Going to be a very dry period for a large portion of the Corn Belt during this time frame. Any rain confined to extreme northwestern and extreme southeastern areas. The extensive rainfall shown for the mid-south and southeast, largely via widely scattered afternoon and evening shower and thunder shower activity that is going to be seen on every day in this period in those areas. Rainfall coverage overall may be somewhat overstated in those areas by this map. Then for the day 6 to 7 time frame, I think that Wednesday of next week still going to be a dry day all across the Corn Belt, but some rain starting to move into far northwestern areas as we get towards Thursday of next week. Still widely scattered afternoon and evening showers and thunder showers accounting for the rain shown in this map for the mid-south and for the southeast. High temperatures yesterday, not as warm as what we saw for July 4th and for a couple of days before that, but still a lot of 90 plus degree heat seen yesterday across a large portion of especially about the southeastern half of the Corn Belt. Low temperatures, or at least temperatures as of 5 a.m. On this Friday morning, shows that still a big portion of the southern Corn Belt seeing temperatures staying above the 70 degree mark at that time. 18-hour rainfall totals through 1 o'clock this morning. Most notable were some locally rather heavy amounts of rainfall that occurred across portions of the eastern Corn Belt during that time frame. You can see that on the radar estimated rainfall since 7 o'clock on Thursday. A pocket there of some rather heavy amounts of rainfall across sections of east central Illinois and into west central and central portion of Indiana. Certainly some big rains there, but you can also see that other portions of the eastern Corn Belt had nothing at all. Early morning radar on this Friday, one of the quieter radars that we have seen across the nation in really a number of weeks. Just very small pockets of rainfall indicated across portions of the northern plains and into a small portion of the hard red winter wheat belt. As far as your near-term rainfall forecast for today through Wednesday, you can see that there is a general model agreement on a severe lack of rainfall across a big portion of the Corn Belt during that time frame. Not just a situation where we're looking at below normal rainfall during this period, but for a large portion of the Corn Belt, largely looking at no rain whatsoever from today right through Wednesday of next week. Why would that be the case? Well, in the near term, it is due to the fact that we are seeing a very large and expansive area of cool and dry air coming into to Canada at this time. This is surface features as of 7 o'clock later on today, and that is going to be a high pressure system that is going to be dominating the Corn Belt right through the weekend period. Then as we get towards the early and middle portion of the work week time frame of next week, we're looking at a pretty sizable dome of high pressure going to be seen across a sizable portion of the Corn Belt at that time, and a sort of a northwesterly flow aloft, staying well to the northeast of the Corn Belt at that time. So a combination of a cool and dry air mass at the surface in the near term, and then a dome of high pressure aloft for the early and middle portion of the work week period of next week accounts for the very limited rainfall, most places nothing at all, that is going to be seen in the Corn Belt from today through about next Wednesday. As far as your temperature forecast is concerned, that cool and dry air mass that I just indicated that is going to be dominating the Corn Belt for today and for the weekend is going to be moderating temperatures all across the area. You can see from this temperature anomaly map for tomorrow that a very big portion of the nation, especially the central and eastern Corn Belt, looking at below normal temperatures for that time frame. We'll be seeing temperatures returning to normal to above normal levels by the time we get to Monday, and then an extended period of above normal temperatures all across the Corn Belt starting on Tuesday and extending through the rest of the 10-day time frame. Looking at a high temperature forecast for a week from today for Friday the 13th, you can see that much of the nation to the east of the Rockies, looking at 90 or even 95 plus degree high temperatures at that time. This is from the European model. You can see that it indicates some pockets of 100 plus degree heat for next Friday. Certainly would have my doubts about that, given the fact that the landscape across the Corn Belt would be still quite green at that time, and that has certainly been a reason why we have not seen really too much in the way of extreme heat in the Corn Belt so far during the summertime period. I have to admit, though, that by that time that soil moisture conditions will be drying up to some degree across the Corn Belt, so I'll give it a little bit better chance of that extreme heat verifying at that time, but it still would have my doubts just given how green the landscape would be. Certainly a situation, though, where we're going to be seeing a number of days next week in which high temperatures above the 90-degree mark, certainly some areas above 95 degrees, will be seen on a number of days. Also be a situation, of course, in which very warm overnight lows are going to be seen. Not too much in the way of 70-plus degree lows in the Corn Belt for the next couple of mornings, but more in the way of 70-plus degree lows again by the time we get to Monday morning, and 70-plus degree lows across a big portion of the Corn Belt will be seen for a number of days beyond that. Looking at the low temperature forecast for next Friday morning, note that much of the nation to the east of the Rockies seeing 70-plus degree lows at that time, a big area of 75-plus degree lows, and the European model would suggest that there will be some areas struggling to see low temperatures next Friday morning getting below the 80-degree mark. Looking at the forecast situation for longer term, as I mentioned in the early portion of the video, I do have a bigger point of emphasis this morning on some moderating temperatures in the 11 to 15 day time frame for the northern plains and into the western Corn Belt. You can see why by this 500 millibar chart for late in the day on July 19th, basically the middle portion of the 11 to 15 day time frame. You can see that by that time, any above normal heights have been confined to far western as well as far northeastern portions of the nation, with more normal heights then being seen by that time in the northern plains and into the western Corn Belt. Certainly would not call that as any sort of a cool weather pattern at that time, but certainly would be something more indicative of a return to more normal temperatures for at least the western Corn Belt and into the northern plains for the 11 to 15 day time frame. As far as the rainfall situation is concerned, I do believe that some rainfall chances will start to return to the Corn Belt for late in the 6 to 10 day period, maybe starting in northwestern portion of the Corn Belt by around next Thursday and continuing for several days after that. As always, we are looking at still a northwesterly flow aloft in the Corn Belt as we get towards latter portion of the 6 to 10 day period and into the 11 to 15 day time frame. It is generally speaking between the 582 and 588 lines, or a little bit further south from there, when you would see probably your best chances for rainfall. You can see that as we get towards the middle portion of the 11 to 15 day time frame, that would put the really the heart of the Corn Belt right underneath that area that is typically favored in a northwesterly flow for the best rainfall chances. It does remain a situation right now where the weather models themselves are not overly optimistic on any sort of big rainfall amounts in the 11 to 15 day period, and that is still where my own forecast resides this morning. But again, as always, still want to emphasize that one has to be wary that northwesterly flow patterns like this can turn out to be wetter than what the weather models would suggest. As far as international weather is concerned this morning over in Europe, not a wet forecast for the next 2 weeks for a lot of Germany, France, and into England. A lot of that area seeing nothing in the way of rainfall for the next 10 days. Poland and areas south of there also going to be dry for the next 5 days. Then Poland and areas to the south of there will be looking at some very nice rains in the 6 to 10 day time frame. For the summer row crop areas of the former Soviet Union, still a wetter forecast than what we have seen for most of the summertime period. Not overly wet though. A lot of that area, especially in the east, still looking at very minimal amounts of rainfall for close to another week. All of the rains that is shown there for the next 2 weeks mainly starting to occur not until around next Friday and beyond. Even then, it would not be the biggest rains that I've ever seen, but at least better rains than what they have seen for a lot of this summertime period, and maybe some half to 1 inch rainfall amounts or even more than that. So for those summer row crop areas of the former Soviet Union, all of the rain that is shown there still in the week 2 time frame, giving it a chance to maybe adjust the forecast as we get closer to that time frame before those rain chances arrive. Still very limited rainfall going to be seen there for at least another week. In the spring grain areas of the former Soviet Union, their forecast is trending wetter once again. Not that rainfall is needed there. You can see that fairly extensive rain going to be seen over the next 10 days across a lot of the spring grain areas of the former Soviet Union. Still a very favorable forecast for corn and soybean crops in China, looking at near to mostly above normal rainfall for both the Manchurian corn and soybean areas and for a big portion of the North China Plain for the next 2 weeks. Not an especially wet forecast for a lot of the Canadian prairies, normal to below normal rainfall there for the next 10 days to 2 weeks. Driest conditions with respect to normal during that time frame are going to be seen across the southern and southwestern portions of the main growing area. Australian forecast is quite dry for the next 2 weeks, and no more would that be the case then for wheat areas of Western Australia and also for New South Wales. A lot of those areas seeing nothing in the way of rainfall for at least the next 10 days. Looking at your Indian monsoon to finish things up here for this Friday, some very nice rain is going to be seen across the central portion of the Indian subcontinent for the next 2 weeks. That rainfall evenly divided between the 1 to 5, 6 to 10, and 11 to 15 day periods, certainly impacting a big portion of the main soybean growing areas of India. A more limited monsoonal rain is going to be seen for the next 2 weeks for areas further north and also further south. That's all that I have for your Friday. Everyone have themselves a good day and an even greater weekend.